Hey everyone, it's your average chess player here. Today we're gonna look at one of my OTB games, over the board games that I played. This was a few months back, but I just got around to reviewing the game and also to see like what I did well and what I did bad. I picked this specific game because the end game was really interesting for me, and I was really frustrated with how my opening to middle game was and choices I made which I did not like. And end game specifically was something that I really enjoyed playing because kind of found the time to calculate all the lines that were required all the way through, and to the point where I knew I was winning. And this was a classical game, if I remember it correctly, hour and a half, and then after 40 moves you get additional 30 minutes. So it's a good time control. So I had lots of time to think. So we'll start. I'm playing white against my opponent, uh, and I started with e4. I'm predominantly an e4 player. I have rarely played d4 in tournaments. So my opponent responded with c5. We have I played c3, a c3 Sicilian, which is an Alapin variation. After d5, ed5, queen d5. This is all like regular theory. Black can here instead of d5. Black can, I think the slightly more modern approach is to play knight f6. D5 is still like second most popular move, you could say, even at the highest level. But knight f6 is usually the line, and after e5, knight d5, d4, we get into these kind of structures. You can even play knight f3 and sacrifice a pawn, like eventually sacrifice a pawn if needed. But here you can't take because of that. So, anyways, so this is the other option, but my opponent went d5. And d5 typically gives a way to like an isolated queen pawn situation, which is what will happen in the game. Ed5, queen d5, knight f3. So you can play d4 immediately. Knight f3 is just tile points, you could say. I'm not entirely sure of the difference between the difference in nuances between d4 and knight f3, which I probably should if I'm playing this opening. But I've seen a bunch of games where knight f3 is played first, so I was like, okay, I'll play knight f3 first. Um, Knight f6 was played. Again, there are a lot of options. Knight f6 seems to be like a natural move to develop and like even like take control of e4, but mostly to just get your king side development done and castle your king. Knight f6, I played d4, and my opponent took on d4. Again, you're not forced to do this. You could play e6 here. You could even I know some games with bishop g4, but the most common response at least at like probably at lower elo is I think cd4. E6 is probably the best response here, and more critical lines are there. cd4 immediately is still okay, not a bad move by any chance. cd4, and we get this isolated queen pawn position iqp, where I have a the queen pawn is isolated. The no pawns on either side support it, and now we'll see how the game goes. I played knight c. I played after cd4. My opponent played e6, which is the correct move here again. You could play g6 to develop this bishop this way, but I'm not a big fan of that structure. I feel like black's bishop might do well on this diagonal. I'm not like you could still play it this way for counterplay against this pawn, but it just like e6 is probably more natural. So e6 was played. I played knight c3, hitting the queen. You should always try to do this whenever you get a chance, like where you develop with tempo. Typically, the Scandinavian defense e4, d5, ed. You get this kind of a knight c3 with the tempo on the queen. So it's similar here. Opponent played queen d8. Um, Queen d8 wasn't something that I had studied specifically. Queen d6 was the move that I have extensively seen. Queen d8 is a bit new to me, so I didn't know what the move was like. So I was like, I didn't have any much theory besides beyond this point, because queen d6 I know like I can just play bishop d3, even bishop c4. For queen d8 I should have played the same thing, because I'm developing a piece and then getting ready to castle. I shouldn't be playing anything else. I felt like bishop c4 was a bit odd for some reason, although I knew it was theory in this when queen d6 was played. So for some inexplicable reason, I I played knight e5, and it's not a bad move. It isn't the but it isn't the great best move either, because I'm delaying my castling. My idea was that if I remember it correctly, my idea was that I'll play bishop b5 and I will exchange off the white bishop here, light squared bishop here, completely forgetting the idea that knight d7 is possible. So that's what I think, but I should have just played bishop d3, which is it's a good move. There's nothing wrong with it. So knight e5 is what I played. My opponent played bishop e7, and now I did do bishop b5 check. Here I thought bishop d6 was a better move, because you can even like get rid of the knight if you want to, but uh, there's nothing wrong with any of these moves here. Bishop b5 check, and then knight d7, and then I played castles, both sides are castled, and white now should start playing a bit more active. If like you could play like rook e1, queen f3, um, which like even I think h3 is fine, you could say, but I didn't play any of those moves, and this is where I think I made my first like anti-positional move, you could say. I played knight takes d7, which when I'm looking at this 3 months later, I hate this move. I should have just played queen f3, which is like a nice and active move for my queen, and or even like rook e1. I could have played queen f3, bishop e3, or even queen f3, bishop f4 or g5. Put the rooks on any of these three semi-open files, and like potentially play for d5. I could have done a million things, but I chose to do knight d7. I'm not a fan of the move. Knight d7, bishop d7, and I played queen e2. I thought if bishop b5 happened, I could play queen b5, or even like yeah, queen b5 and then put some pressure. But it was just a flawed plan. Let's just leave it there. So queen e2 is what I played, and my opponent he was playing. I think he was playing the best moves here, which is a6. And here like I did not see anything else. Like if I play like something like bishop a4, just free bishop, but uh, bishop c4 I meant is what I meant. Like you could play b5 and then b3 and then b4. It's just a lot of tempo that I would give back, so I decided to just take. I didn't want to play bishop d3 because um typically like it's I think it's more of a psychological factor, where if you retreat a piece that you just put forward a couple of moves back, you take it back, it's like you're accepting a mistake, which is what you should do if you're a good chess player. But sometimes it does come in the way. But luckily for me, bishop d3 isn't the best move here. The move I played was bishop takes d7, and queen takes d7 is what happened. And this is still the best move in the position, despite me exchanging my pieces. So what will happen next? So we kind of, I'm gonna say, we're gonna transition to the middle game soon. I played bishop e3, black played rook a8, good move, controlling this the semi-open file. I oppose that. Rook a d8 and rook ft1. So both sides have completed the development, and I think it's a good time to now take stock on what is happening. So I there are a couple of things that I was unhappy at this point. One is I regretted giving up my light squared bishop, and also like exchanging a knight, because this d5 square is starting to look weak for me, because and that is one thing I realized in IQP positions. The square in front of the pawn is gonna be weak, especially like this, where black can actually play, like if black manages to exchange my knight for this bishop, for example, their knight could sit on d5, and it's going to be a menace. And I, on the other hand, also cannot move my own knight. Like I cannot play knight e4 because knight d5 would feel a bit irritating. um and so that's what I was worried about. I think whatever I described is probably why black played their next move, which was bishop b4. I With the idea of taking on c3 and then playing knight d5. uh, Although this idea is slightly flawed, because for example, if I play a3, for example, takes knight d5 would let me, like, I can play c4 and take the knight, and I would have a defender for the square, but I can never move this pawn. If this pawn moves, knight is going to sit here and harass me all the time, and it's just a good blockade piece. So we'll go back. So black played bishop b4 here, and one more thing in this position, which I noticed, I'll tell you, like, after black, after the next couple of moves. So bishop b4 was played, and I played. So I immediately realized the only way I could probably get some counterplay is to play this move, which is bishop g5. Reason being, I'm threatening, since this bishop is no longer guarding the knight, I'm threatening to take here and open up the king and try for some counterplay this way with queen g4, rook d3, rook g3 or something. And the engine also kind of agrees that that's what I should be doing. And the only way to prevent all this, if you play bishop c3, then I think I'm slightly better here, because you can't you can't take your bishop back because I'm hitting your rook, so you have to force to capture here, and then I can take and then even play c4. Now I have some active, like I have an open file, and I can probably play around that. I'm not saying it's winning, but at least it wasn't, the position isn't unpleasant as it was before for me. So black is forced to play bishop e7, which is what my opponent played. And yeah, this is where I think I took probably 10 to 15 minutes just to understand what the hell is going on, right? I seem to have like warded off all the threats that my opponent gave me, and now I'm in a position to start probably playing for some advantage. A sad thing to say as white, uh, from the white side, but because of my choices on what pieces I exchanged earlier, I'm in a, I need to do something about it. So I first thing I realized was the fact that all my pieces, they're kind of there in their optimal positions. Like I could play, in some world I would want my queen on f3, but if I play queen f3, black can just play b5, and it doesn't really. I'm not really doing anything on this diagonal, and none of my pieces can actually capitalize on that. So I didn't like that. Also, like if I ever move my knight from his post, like black can exchange a pair of rooks. And because of that, I felt like, okay, like someday in some variation, back rank might be an issue. So that is something that I was thinking about. I also wanted to, like, make d5 work here somehow. Like it right now it wouldn't work immediately because you play knight d5, and there's not much I can do. Black can even play like a move like knight c3, which I'll show you later. Like it does come up in the game later, but I wanted to make this d5 work somehow. And the reason I wanted to make d5 work, and I spent some time on that, was the fact that this file, like if I, like, for example, ed5, this piece will eventually become loose, or whatever piece is there in that square. So I felt like there was some kind of a tactic there in that in this file, and I wanted to see how I can capitalize on that. But whatever variations that I was looking at, I couldn't make them work. So I went with the second thing that I noticed, which was my back rank could eventually become an issue. So I thought I'll play h3, and just give myself that additional space when needed, so I don't have to worry about tactics here. So I played h3. I think also, like, if black plays h6 and g5. For some reason, I could always tuck my bishop here and not get harassed by any of the pieces. So just a simple utility move. And my opponent played a move which is what I thought he would play, which is b5, like trying to dislodge this knight and put their own knight here, which is a valid plan. I again consider d5 here because it's slightly it felt like it was a bit more doable here. I saw this specific variation with knight d5, bishop e7, knight c3, followed by I was checking like rook c3, but then I realized I was blundering here, so I played bc3. Like I calculated bc3, queen e7, and I just stopped here, and then I felt like pawns are not connected anymore, which kind of makes it a bit awkward to counter these pawns, and black could actually play against that. So I didn't like something like queen a3 and starting to harass my pawns, which felt uncomfortable. So I just came out of an uncomfortable position. I didn't want to go back there. So, but I really tried making it work, but no. And I didn't want to exchange my bishop here with bishop f6. And this is something I think again on a psychological factor. Bishop f6 is potentially the best move here. The reason being, I thought like bishop f6 and then d5, and this would be a good counter punch in the position and I could play for something. But my problem here was that like I all like not anything like bishop c3. I could play d6. All that wasn't the problem here. The problem was the fact that like I could do all this and get into this variation with a pawn here. But the psychological factor that I had was I just exchanged a bishop and a knight, and I ended up in a worse position. So the feeling of exchanging this bishop for this knight and exchanging more pieces off the board made me feel really uncomfortable, and I didn't even calculate. So all the variation I showed is just on the fly, with whatever analysis I did later. But I didn't want to even get into that variation. So I played a3 because I didn't want black to play b4, which is I think it's fine. My opponent played the best move here, which is queen b7. The reason is like if I ever do play d5, this like the queen is not going to be the first piece that is in the line of fire. The knight will be the rook will also be in the action. So and also like you now can play b4 and even bring the queen here, covering this diagonal. I cannot play queen f3 anymore because black can open up the position. It might not be dangerous, but unpleasant. So double pawns is unpleasant. I did not see this move at all. I thought it was going to play b4 anyway. Anyways, so here I played here I played a move assuming a specific variation. I did not see the best response here. Thankfully, neither did my opponent. So I played b4. The reason for me playing b4 here, I think, is I wanted to lock up the activity on this side of the board so that I could find a way to still play d5. I can't play d5 here because of again like knight d5. I take then just knight takes e7, and then although I have exchanged I'm just down a pawn here for nothing. Although I have exchanged a couple of pieces, and I don't think white is playing for a win here. Like I have to again exchange more pieces, and it'll just become unpleasant. So I wanted to lock up this side of the board so that my knight doesn't get dislodged from control of d5, and then see what I can do. So that's why I played b4. I don't think it's objectively the best move, but that's what I played. I played b4. When I played b4, there's only one variation I calculated, and that's what happened in the game, which I'll show you. But the best move here is h6. And then the computer gives an obscene line with g5, bishop g3, and then rook c4. Um, and then you play for a win from there. So I don't know how that works. I also like looked at rook c4 briefly, but then I was thinking maybe now bishop f6, and then knight e4, not a d5, but knight e4, and then maybe I can play knight c5, and maybe some counterplay. Black can continue bishop d4, but then I can do something like this. Not a fan of all these variations, but um, I mainly played Rook C4 seemed really odd because it wasn't like a move with a plan. I was mostly expecting the move which was played in the game, which was Knight D5. And Knight D5 seemed like a natural move because there are a lot of tactics here. And the reason I invited this was because all the tactics kind of work in my favor. And I saw it till a point where I thought, okay, I can probably grind this position. So this leads to a series of forced variations, I would say, if played correctly, which is what happened in the game. And it starts with bishop e7. Not knight takes d5, bishop g5, and I definitely don't want this specific imbalance with the knight and bishop because this isolated pawn is not something I can probably manage with a knight. I definitely didn't want to play this position. It's just I think it's a preference. I'm not happy with it. So I played bishop e7, which is probably the best move. And after knight takes e7, I was like, okay, this is okay. Like this position is okay. If my opponent plays knight takes e7, this position is okay, and I could probably um, play a bit active. Maybe like I can play like queen e5 and might have to grind this. But my opponent played knight takes c3, and this variation is something that this I was banking on this variation being played because this led to a slightly favorable position for me, you could say. So the knight is hitting my rook and queen, and I have to like play rook takes c3, and black cannot play rook takes c3 back because I can take the rook on d8. So that's not possible. So black has to take on e7, which is what happened in the game. And I could play like rook c5 to see if black would exchange, but I went ahead and exchanged a pair of rooks. Um, and the reason being is what the tactical motive that I told earlier, which is d5, uh, with a loose piece on e7. I still had it in mind, and I wanted this to happen. And now you can't take here because I win the queen. So this way, I would force d6 and maybe even fe6 or even d6, queen e6 takes, and I would potentially land with an imbalance in the structure where I have 3 pawns this way and there's 2 pawns here, but there'll be an isolated pawn here. We did see a similar position in one of the variations I showed earlier, but here it works slightly bit differently because black will first play rook d8, which is what my opponent played. Because if you play like something like h6, this this isn't a great position. I'm not. I can take here, but I'm the one with the open file, and I can because of rook d6, I'll get a pawn, and maybe I can start pressing for an advantage. So rook d8 was played in the game, not h6, and then I played d6. You cannot take with the queen because it's mate. You cannot. You can take with the pawn, but this takes, and then I take here because of the check. So the forcing variation again is to take here, and I take. Now you need to play fe6. If you play queen a6, it's a mate in 1 or a mate in 2, whatever you want to call that. So fe6 is forced, and then we reach a good end game with queens on the board. It's not a winning end game by any margin, but I have a small imbalance. So this is what I went for all the way when I played. Let's say when played b4, I was hoping for knight d5 takes and knight c3. The other variations were like slightly comfortable. Um, Definitely h6 was the most uncomfortable, which I didn't see in the game. But the other options did not seem um, that appetizing for black. So that's why I banked on this variation being played. And about like what six moves later, that's the position we reach. And I played queen f3 here, and it's just a nice active queen move right there. And my opponent played another like, so I just wanted to control this diagonal, keep the king from getting active, even play queen c6 and threaten taking this pawn. My opponent played queen d6. He was again he played a really good game so far. Queen d6 actually defends the c6 diagonal, and any check I give is going to be futile. I'm not going to get anything. He has everything covered, so do I. But again, like I said, there's an imbalance, and I need to do something about it. So here I played the move g3. The whole reason for me to play this move was I did not want a perpetual of any kind. So I wanted to play g3 to just give my king that cover, so I could dance between these squares, and also make my queen feel like a fianchetto bishop. So that's why I played g3. And here my opponent played queen d5. So the moment he played queen d5, I did have some kind of a light bulb going on that went off in my head, which I chose to ignore. But I did feel that queen d5 here is a blunder immediately. But I don't think I was more preoccupied with just playing g3 king g2 like some GM games would have it. So I was more preoccupied with doing that. But let it be known that queen takes d5 is actually winning here because of this variation where whatever you do now, white can now push all these pawns, and it's 3 versus 2, and eventually simplify it to a single pawn on this side, and black king would have to chase that, and I could capture this pawn and go capture the other pawns and queen one of these two pawns. So this is already winning, but I gave up all that advantage by playing king g2. um, yeah, I still feel bad, but my opponent he could have just played queen d6 and the game would go on. But he was like, you did a blunder, I did a blunder, you did a blunder, no, you need to win the game, take it. And he played queen takes f3. And the moment he played queen takes f3, I was like, okay, this I'm forced to take. But the thing is, I'm now again winning. And why am I winning is the same motive that I like mentioned earlier. My plan was simple. I want to get to e5 with my king as soon as possible, or at least take control of that square. And then from e5, I should try to go this side if allowed, and take one of these two pawns and start queening. And the only way that my king would be free to do that is if black's king did not have an easy path to these squares here. Like black king had to come all the way to outflank me and capture my pawns. So plan is simple. So now it's all about execution, and definitely there are like a lot of additional nuances in between which I'll try to remember and cover. So king f7 is what my opponent played, and I played king e4. Here I expected him to play king f6, but he just played king e7 and gave me a free path to e5. So king f6, I think the series of moves here would be the same as in my game. It's just that the king would be like, it would be probably a bit more a bit of a stiff resistance, I would say. Giving up e5 square for free wasn't I felt like it was a pivotal square that shouldn't be given up. So king e7, king e5, and now my first step of my plan is achieved. I have a centralized king who can swing both ways depending on what square is given up or not. So if black plays king f7, I immediately play king d6 and I start gobbling these pawns up and I queen, because this pawn cannot advance while this pawn is alive. That's why the imbalance is really, really important. And if you start advancing these pawns, I would exchange them and I would still have the option to cover everything. But that didn't happen. My opponent played king d7. Now, if this side, if I'm not going to be allowed this side, I need to start making progress on this side, so that the other part of the plan, which is to restrict the black piece movement, um, is by like bringing my own pawns forward. So I played f4. With the next series of moves that I wanted to play was just g4 and h4, just starting to restrict the king. And if the king ever goes to f7, there's no way you can come forward, so I can still go here. So f4, king e7 was played. Black really doesn't have any moves. Has to be like just be dancing, because you gave up the e5 square. You can't even make any counterplay here. H4, and then my opponent again play king e7. Now, so this is a critical position, because I don't have access to the side. I need to make a play here, but I should make a play carefully, because the reason is there are two plans that I can do. One is figure out how to move these pawns forward, which is what the only thing that I considered and I played. The other option is to play king d4. Like, since d6 is taken away, you could play king d4 and they could play like king f6. And then you still have to play the move that I played in the game, which is why I didn't like it. Because it's like you're going around, and I didn't want to give up any key squares that I already have control of. Like, by doing this, you could play king f6, but I can still play king c5 and win this. But I didn't want to give up any of these squares and get into that. So there are only like three logical moves here, if that is the thought process, right? One is f5, but after ef5, king f5, let's say king f7, it's a symmetrical structure. And symmetrical structures are not in endgames, specifically like king pawn endgames, are notorious for how drawish they are. So here there's really no way to make progress. If I play g5, black can play g6 check, and what would happen is we would start moving around like this. I mean, let me go back. Black cannot come forward, has to play king f8. But with the right play, this is a draw. Like, if black comes forward, I do have I can win this by playing this. But um, if I go back, or if I play king e5, king e7, and then this is draw. In fact, king f4 is like a triangulation trap. Like, if you play if you play king g8, I can go all the way like this and draw the game, win the game. So I didn't consider this, but I won't be playing like, you can't play hoping for a trap. Let me quickly show you the line. Like, I have my engine on now, so I can just check the line. King f4. The only winning move is king f8. Sorry, drawing move is king f8, and white has to play king e5 and then king e7, and you get to this corresponding square. When the white king is on e5, your king has to be on e7, so you control the key squares. But if you play if you play king e6 by mistake, then king e4, and whatever you play, I can if you do this, I can go this way, and if you go that king e6, I can go c5. Okay, great. Okay, but with the right play, this is a draw. So f5 doesn't work. Let's go back. G5. G5 also again is a draw, or like, at least like, you can't make progress because of g6. And the reason is I cannot move any of my pawns now. I definitely cannot move f5, because you just take it, and now black is winning. Sorry, you take it this way and black is winning. Um, and now, like, I have to spend all my life defending this pawn, like making sure it doesn't go away. But if I go there, black can always like just mirror me, and like whatever I play, like black can now play king e6. If I go that way, I can just start pushing f4. That's why you have to take with this pawn and not this. With a good threat. If you take it this way, the other problem as to why you shouldn't take it this way is I can play h5, and now I have my other additional counterplay of g6 here, and you would have to spend time dealing with this threat. So f5 is no good, and same h5 is just a pawn, and in fact black will be winning because black will queen, and I have to go all the way to defend it. Black can just gobble these pawns, queen this pawn. Yeah. So g5 doesn't work, and the only move apart from like king d4, and again, so even with king d4, the only winning move here is h5. There's no other move. The same, so I played h5 immediately here, and my opponent played everything here is losing. My opponent played h6, and here the fastest winning move is just to play g5, and my opponent played king d7. He still didn't want to give this up. And the again the fastest way to win, which I played, is gh6. Gh6, you can play anything here. I can just take here and a queen, but gh6 is probably okay. Here, two ways to win. I chose king f6. You could play f5, but I didn't want to complicate it. I saw a winning line, and I just went for it, which is king f6. This is what happened in the game: king d6, king g6, king d5, king takes h6, king e4, and I can even play king g6 for style points. Um, uh, but king g5 is what I played. I want to hold on to this pawn. King g6, you could like let them take this pawn and queen first, and then play that endgame. But I don't want to give any counterplay. So king g5, followed by my opponent played e5, fe5, king e5, and from here it's like a just a elementary thing. And my opponent, I think he played. I played queen h3 check. He played king a4, and here what he didn't realize, he was trying for a kind of a stalemate trick, you could say. I suppose, but what he forgot, or he still had a move here. So I played this move queen c3, and he was forced to play a5, and I played ba5, and again he has only one move. I was forced to play b4, and I played queen takes b4 and mate. Pretty finished to the game. I think the critical moments were when I misplayed my opening, for sure. We'll go all the way back. One, again, not a big fan of knight e5. Bishop d3 was a much better alternative. Just castle, and maybe just play rook e1, bishop g5. Just develop naturally, right? Which is what I should have done. But I play knight e5, so not a big fan. Also, not a big fan of the fact that after castles, I took the knight here. I should have just played active chess. Like I think even bishop g5, like knight d5 would force the exchange. Maybe like, yeah, rook e1, queen f3 would be good, but I chose to exchange, which kind of came back to bite me because my d5 square was weak. All this part of the game, I was kind of happy that how it played out, because I got this imbalance, like small imbalance in the pawn structure. Here I did make a huge blunder. I should have calculated it, because the same motifs that we saw later in the after the exchange of the queens was the same thing that happened here. But after this was a relatively straightforward endgame once you know what is the key square that you need to occupy, and then what is the next win condition or the game plan, which was to just restrict black's king on this side and try to see if you can go there. Otherwise, just use your 3 versus 2 pawn majority to break through. So just what we did with the pawn storm on the king side. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I just wanted, like, this is an over the board game that I played, and I was pretty proud of it on how it turned out. I think it took us all the way, like, what, 30 moves almost before, or 29 moves before the first blunder, like a big game defining blunder, you could say. 28 moves. So it was just on the 30th move that the game was kind of decided, and it went on for another few moves. But it was I think it's a game of decent quality for the rating band that we are in. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. If you do like endgames or studying endgames, I made a few videos recently. So if you're this long into the video and you're listening to this, go check out those videos. You might like enjoy that and learn a few things which you could employ into your own games. I been studying endgames recently just after this game, because I felt like hey, if I choose openings that do put me in end games more often, then I should probably be better at it so that I could outplay my opponent. So yeah, um, do like the video if you really liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you like the video. See you guys in the next one.